Come on in. I'm excited to be kicking off today's track. I hope everybody's fully caffeinated and ready to go this morning because I'm here to talk about everybody's favorite two letters in the alphabet, AI. And more specifically, the topic of brand trust in the AI era and how AI is ultimately going to affect the way that we emotionally connect with brands. But before I dive in, quick intro. I'm Shawn Perritt. I'm the VP of Brand Strategy and Creative for Acquia. For those who don't know Acquia, we are an open digital experience company that was born out of Drupal. We share the same founder, Dries Bytard, so we have some very deep ties to Drupal, and we're proud to also be the #1 contributor to Drupal. So we're obviously big fans of Drupal and glad to be here. So I wanted to start out by opening up with a quote. And it's the idea that what we do is easily replaced. So technology, it's all going to start replacing what it is that we do. And that's fine. That's a fine use of AI. I think everybody's diving in with AI. We're all using it to make ourselves go faster. But what we're made of is algorithm proof. Okay, so what's in here, what's part of our brand DNA, how we emotionally connect our brands to our audience. AI can't do that yet because it can't feel. So I think there's an important distinction about when to use AI and then when it's sort of a cautionary tale. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that. And I'm going to talk about it in the area of 5 topics. So I'm calling these the 5 cruel ironies of AI. And it's the whole notion that we're all championing and celebrating the usage of AI. And our companies want us to use it, and it's great. But sometimes, when the end user knows that some of our content is being generated by AI, it's being met with mixed emotions. There's sometimes negative reactions around that. We have to prepare for that because it affects brand trust. So I'm going to talk about 5 things today. The first one is faster doesn't always capture. So this is the idea that AI is built for speed. But just because it allows us to move faster doesn't mean that we're going to ultimately capture someone's attention. So this is something that we have to keep in mind. And a quote related to this that I really love, which is by Václav Havel, who's a Czechoslovakian playwright. He said, when expression is cheap, capturing attention becomes expensive. And I love this as it relates to brand expression in particular. Because the human brain, right? Our job as a brand is to own a piece of real estate in someone's mind. And that real estate is now at a premium. And the more content that's generated, the more AI content that's out there, the harder it's going to be and the more expensive it's going to be to capture some of that real estate. So I think it's something that we have to keep in mind. Because our mental real estate is at an absolute premium. And the human brain is actually set up to ignore what's average. We can't help it. We kick these thoughts out when we know that they're fake, when we know that they're not authentic. So you can generate content as fast as you want to with AI, but if there's no connection on the other end, it's a wasted opportunity. All right, cruel irony number 2. I'm calling this the hype paradox. And a couple of examples here. When AI reveals itself, right, something interesting happens. We get so excited. Oh, look how quickly and how amazing this AI-generated content is. We put it out on LinkedIn, and all of a sudden, people are commenting on it. Hey, I thought we were supposed to be celebrating this. Now, all of a sudden, it's a negative. So, example on the right, everybody's seen the M-dash police, right? All of a sudden, this punctuation mark that's been around forever is completely under fire. We're not supposed to use M-dashes anymore. We know that ChatGPT generated that, and now that's all of a sudden a negative thing. So when you're experimenting in your personal use, that's fine. But what happens when this gets put out on behalf of your brand and people start commenting? All of a sudden, brand trust gets questioned. Second example on the left, and I blew this up, but this little CR watermark so you can see it. Has anyone seen these on LinkedIn lately? They're in the top left-hand corner of LinkedIn images, you're going to see a CR mark from time to time. When you roll over that, it stands for credentials, okay? LinkedIn now knows when an image is generated by ChatGPT, and it's putting a watermark on those images. I love generating AI images. It's fun. But when we put those on LinkedIn on behalf of our brand, for example, and then we start flipping through our feeds, I don't know about you, but I can't help it. When my brain sees that watermark, it automatically knows that the image is fake. And it creates a barrier between me and making an emotional connection with that brand. So yes, it's faster, yes, it's amazing, it's cheaper to create these AI images, but there are these blockers now because platforms like LinkedIn, rightfully, I think, are making things more transparent. So that's the hype paradox. Number 3, AI as the most celebrated secret. So I think because of a couple of these examples I just showed, even though we're celebrating this and we're supposed to use it, and people are, being more relevant internally, they're, pushing for more job security around, hey, I'm using AI, look, I'm using AI. Well, if we're going to be called out for it, all of a sudden now people are actually hiding the fact that they're using it. And why is that? Why is AI now a celebrated secret? So Duke University did this study last year, and by the way, people could answer multiple different options. That's why it doesn't add up to 100%. But it was a survey around why workers hide their AI use. And it turns out that 36% of those people, even though we're supposed to be using this, think that it gives them a secret advantage. So if they turn something into their boss, they're like, hey, look, they want to take credit for that work because it makes them look better. 30% of the people said that they're worried their job might be reduced or cut. So now it's like, hey, look, I did this with AI. Well, maybe we don't need you anymore because you did it with AI. Maybe we can give it to somebody else. So people are worried about this, even though they're supposed to be using it. Other answers include my boss might give me more work. What if I turn this in and somebody does get excited about me? Wow, this person's really good with AI. Let's pile it on. Let's give them 3 times as much because AI can do it, right? It's a magic bullet. So these are all things that everybody's dealing with. I think it's good to keep using AI. I'm a huge champion of it in so many ways, but we just have to be careful on how that's sort of being interpreted because even people aren't trusting it. Even people aren't saying that they're using it. They're not admitting it. So number 4, AI as an unreliable narrator. How many people have heard of AI hallucinations, right? We're all aware of that as a thing. Stanford did a study that said most enterprise models still hallucinate 20 to 30% of the time in real world use. So I don't know about you, but when I go to ChatGPT, the answer, it's so articulate, I don't even question it, right? I mean, this stuff is amazing. And when it's for personal use, I mean, there's not a huge risk. Maybe it's a little bit, but when you're putting this stuff out on behalf of your brand, it's faster, but then we have to add more manual hours of having humans in the loop, of QAing things, right? So just because we need less headcount to do this now doesn't mean we don't need more people on the back end QAing some of this content because, again, we don't want to slip up, and we don't want that to affect our brand trust. All right, number 5, brand trust can be fleeting. And I'm going to show an example of this in the real world. Duolingo as a brand. How many know the Duolingo brand? I like Duolingo. I'm a fan. I have nothing against them. They have built massive brand trust, particularly on social media. They're one of the darlings of TikTok. They have this huge loyal following. But something interesting happened recently when they announced externally that they were going to sort of an AI-first policy, okay, around generating content. And then all of a sudden, their fans didn't like that. So they took to social media and they started negatively talking about the very brand that they've loved, that they've been a huge fan and supporter of. So all of a sudden, overnight, brand trust can be won or lost in a matter of seconds. So we're all talking about AI internally, right? It's all a part of everyone's policies, and I think that's okay. But it's the packaging of this as it relates to the brand expression and being sensitive to that I think is an important thing to call out here. So kind of a level set moment here. So how can you arm yourself for the future to make sure that your brand still feels authentic? You know, this story is still being written. We're all experimenting with things. We're all kind of trying to figure it out. But just a couple things to keep in mind. I think it starts with your people. I think you have to build your brand from the inside out. The people that are the most curious and passionate, the people that are the biggest disruptors, the people that are the Swiss Army knives, it's like, I don't really know where to put that person. They're kind of a generalist. They're kind of good at everything. Like,
those are the people I want on my team, right? Like, that is your core team, and you can build AI around that, but you put your people first. And I call this the human stack. And I think if we pour over our human stack in the same way that we do our tech stack, and if we design it in the right way, we're setting ourselves up for success so that the humans are on top and they are powered by AI. The AI sits underneath that. And I think that's an important nuance versus putting the AI first and let's plug a bunch of people into that. That's the difference between an AI company who is innovative and one that's just using it to cut cost. So I think people first is going to be a big deal, and I think the human stack is important. And I actually also think that original thinkers will have the last unfair advantage. When AI levels the playing field and it's baked into every system of record that we have, your ability to create original thought and apply that as a layer on top of AI is what's going to allow you to create something that actually stands out in the market. So watch out, here come the creatives, which is pretty ironic. And even AI brands know they need original thinkers. If any category has a brand trust problem, it's the AI companies, and they know it. So they've brought in these big thinkers. Does anybody know who the person on the left is?
Rick Rubin.
Rick Rubin, exactly. Anthropic brought him in to partner with them to bring some emotion into the brand. Does anybody know who the person on the right is?
Johnny Ive.
Johnny Ive, right? Everybody's heard this. OpenAI hired Johnny AI to bring some emotion into the brand. So if you break this down, Anthropic has decided that Rick Rubin is an important part of their human stack. Even though AI was sold as a path to automation, Rick Rubin openly admits, I have no coding ability, I have no design background, I make software based on intuition and taste. So AI is doing the opposite. They're bringing in somebody who has nothing to do with AI to help them learn how to feel and help bring more emotion to the table. So Johnny Ive, hired by OpenAI, who's the inventor of the iPhone, he's hired to focus on deep design and creativity, to bring some original thinking into the fold. And by the way, they paid $6.5 million for Johnny Ive and his partner to come in as a design team to an AI company that is here to automate the world. So it's really interesting. So I think the takeaway here is that AI won't kill creativity, it'll actually crown a new generation. So we all have an unfair advantage here, which is deep thinking. So use AI as an unlock to make things go faster, but don't turn your brains off, right? Like, let's keep thinking, let's come up with original ideas, because AI imitates, right? But it doesn't innovate because it's looking at past things and it's drawing connections, and that's what it's intended to do. So question, how can you arm yourself with original thinking to help you grow in your role? Because everybody might be saying, well, I'm not Rick Rubin, right? I'm not Johnny Ive. Well, what if we're all actually more creative than we think we are? And I'm going to illustrate that through the NASA creativity test. I don't know if anybody's aware of this, but back in 1969, NASA ran a creativity test, and they surveyed 1,000 5-year-olds, okay? And it turns out 98% of the 5-year-olds scored at the highly creative level. And they were determined that these were the creative geniuses that NASA needed. 5 years later, they surveyed the same 1,000 kids when they were 10 years old, because they wanted to see what happens to creativity over time. So 5 years later, they surveyed the 10-year-olds, and it turns out only 30% of the same kids scored as creative geniuses. By age 15, those same kids were surveyed, and that portion dropped to 12%. Eventually, they tested the same people as adults, and only 2% scored in the highly creative range. So what happened to these people over time who were set up for NASA, most of them by 5 years old? The problem is we don't practice creativity as we scale throughout life, right? Everything is about math, everything is about science. There's amazing reasons for that. But creativity is no longer practiced. And creativity is just like any other muscle. It's like going to the gym. You have to tone it, you have to use it in order for it to become faster, in order for it to become better. So, I believe creativity isn't rare, it's buried, And we all have to learn how to unearth this so that we can then come back in and apply it to AI so that we can come up with something more original. So the question is, what are we all going to do about that? How can we bring creativity as a practice into our daily lives so ultimately we can apply it to our brand and develop better brand trust? How do we step outside of our comfort zones? And I had this idea the other day, so I thought I would bring it in to this presentation, and I was thinking about the step tracker we have on our iPhones. Like, everybody has to close those circles, right? We have to get to 10,000 steps per day. Like, I remember one day I was in the living room, I was at 9,500 steps, and I was pacing around to get the extra 500 steps, and my wife's looking at me like I'm crazy, right? But I want to do that because I want to hit that goal. Well, what if we treat creativity the same way? What if you have to get 10,000 creative steps per day? What does that look like? It's about the idea that creativity is about flooding your brain with inputs. And then those inputs marinate in these two disparate things. They glom onto each other and they form an idea and they present themselves in the form of outputs. In order to do this, you have to constantly be learning new things and trying new things. So what if you got 1,000 creative steps for working from a coffee shop you've never been to, right? Go there, observe people, work in a new part of town. Something new is going to enter your brain and something more original is going to happen. What if you got 2,000 steps, for example, for watching a movie in a genre that you hate? Like if I had to watch a period film or a horror film, like it's not my thing, but I'm going to learn something, I'm going to push myself outside of my comfort zone. 3,000 steps for taking a class about something you know about. If we keep doing this every day and we keep pushing ourselves, our prompts are going to be better than their prompts because we're bringing in something new, something unique. I think everybody is kind of like a fingerprint, like no two of us are the same. So this concoction of inputs that enter our brain are going to create more original outputs. So I think you have to scare yourself in order to amaze yourself. So final takeaway here, I think AI builds on what exists, but I think people imagine what it doesn't. So I think there's still hope for all of us. I think AI is amazing. I think we need to apply some creativity to it, and I think we're going to create